Good afternoon. My name is Amanda Rivera. I'm the hearing examiner presiding over today's case. The date is June 26th, 2025, and this is case DCi2023-00013. It is a rezoning request to the CPD zoning district for property on New Post Road in North Fort Myers. Because this is a quasi-judicial hearing, all evidence and testimony must be taken under oath. So if you intend to speak, if you could please raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you'll provide is the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. So it sounds like Mary Sue may have already gone over this, but the way that we'll proceed today is first we're going to hear from the applicant. They will present their request and call any witnesses that they may have in support of that request. Then we're going to hear from the county staff, who will go over their staff report and their recommendation. In this case, they are recommending approval with conditions. After that, I'll open up the public comment period. I will call forward the cards that I have in the order that I have them. There is only one opportunity to speak, so I encourage you to take notes as we go through things so that you can make the most of your time at the podium when you're called. And if you intend to speak at the board, you must speak at the hearing today, and the comments at the board will be limited to the comments that you make today. After we hear from the public, then we'll come back to the applicant and the staff for their rebuttal and any closing comments. With that, we can begin. Did staff have the affidavit of publication?
Yes, we do. Here.
Thank you. Let's see. Okay, so I will accept that as the applicant Exhibit 2.
Staff.
Excuse me, thank you. Staff Exhibit 2. Staff Exhibit 1 was the staff report. And with that, we can begin whenever the applicant is ready.
Okay. Oh. I missed that.
That's okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Gabriel Mejia. I am with Burrell Engineering and Design. We designed the project and permitted for both the DO that is currently pending approval of the DCI and the DCI which we're meeting for today. We did it in behalf of our clients, Michael and Worth, who are sitting here with me. Also, Javier Burrell is here with me, who helped us with the DCI process. So just a quick rundown of the project. This we're proposing a self-storage facility, as you can see there. It's located off of New Post Road, just south of Bayshore Road.
Can you slow down just a little bit?
Sure. Okay. Of course. So I'll start again. We're proposing a self-storage facility in North Fort Myers off of New Post Road, as you can see on the exhibit, just south of Bayshore Road. It's a 3-story facility. We're looking at 34,000 more or less square feet per floor. We have some street view pictures just to see what it looks like currently, which is undeveloped. It is vacant. And yep, I'll go on to the next slide. This is the zoning map, the future, the zoning designation, and also you can see the future urban areas legend up in the top right corner. We are located within that. Our property zone, I think C1A, I believe, and the purpose for this DCI is so we can rezone to CPD, which is commercial plan development, as self-storage facilities weren't allowed in the original zoning. All right, this is just some renderings that the architect put together of the building, just so you guys can see more or less what it's going to look like. That is the south facade right there, which is going to be the front of the property as you drive in. We also have the east facade with the overhead doors, which clients are going to use to roll up and access their storage units. We do have landscaping all around the site, and we wanted to provide a quick depiction of what I believe this is, I guess, south buffer is going to look like, which abuts the residential zoning. I know there were some concerns with that. We have an 8-foot opaque wall that was proposed on our plans. Like I said, they're pending approval, along with a 25-foot buffer to buffer the residential from the commercial. We also don't have any overhead doors on that side, so there isn't going to be cars coming in and out from that side of the building.
Can you go back for 1 second?
Of course.
So just to clarify, the wall is the building serving as the wall, or in addition
No,
to that?
there's that. In addition to that, up into the 25-foot buffer, there is a 8-foot high opaque wall to limit visibility from the residential side to the commercial side, which is this side of the project. The building in itself is about 50 feet away from that property line.
And the plantings would be on the exterior of the wall?
Correct, facing the residential zone outside of the wall. And then lastly, these are pictures that were taken by our environmental surveyor that went out and did the listed species survey and also an environmental assessment survey to show that there are no native species and also no native animals that are residing there. That was part of the DO process as well, which has been, it's pending approval, but it has gone through that set of review. And that kind of summarizes our, my explanation of the project. Other than that, we are providing a sidewalk along the frontage of the property that goes north from our site to Bayshore Road to connect to existing pedestrian facilities on Bayshore Road. And yeah, I think that's that wraps it up.
You have the master concept plan. Was there a slide for that?
None
Or
of
could-
those, I have it
Could you
in
pull
mine.
it up? If you can just kind of walk through the master concept plan
This is
and the circulation.
the closest thing for that. We can go over it. So what specifically would you like me to discuss?
Well, I'm curious, so the dumpster placement, for example, is on the residential side, and I'm curious why it would be on the rear of the building closest to residents and not, for example, in like the north corner somewhere.
I think it's a buffer requirement. So there is, on the west side of the property, there is, well, one, there's a 40-foot FDOT drainage easement that is untouched. We cannot develop on it, and it's staying untouched as it provides drainage for our side and all the sides north and south of our property. Next to that, there's a 5-foot buffer that's adjacent to the commercial zoning, and then there's a 50-foot buffer. So we are a bit limited on space, as you can see, just because of the way of the shape of the lot. And when we place the dumpster in that location, it's gonna be, the wall's gonna be covering that. You know, it extends up until the dumpster and actually just beyond it. So they're not gonna be able to see it. And we just figured that'd be the best location for a dumpster truck to come in and out. It's just a straight shot in and out, and then they can just circulate the site and
Can they
leave.
not do that on the north side, though, on that same strip? Because in similar cases, that's often a concern of the residents. Even if they're visually shielded, they
Yeah.
still experience the noise of when the dumpsters are being accessed by the solid waste vehicles.
It could be. I do think that it would hit the buffer. I know it's hard to tell on this plan, but if you can kind of see it in the northwest corner of the pavement or the driveway, there are some trees there, and that's because there's a buffer right next to it. And I think this dumpster would possibly encroach into that area. We have a lot more room in the southwest corner, as you can see it right there. And actually, that's where most of our detention is for drainage purposes, is right in that area, just because that's where we have the most room to work with, and figured that'd be the best location for the dumpster.
And then can you just briefly, you said that there would be no doors, roll-up doors on the south. So are those what's indicated in the hatching on the west and the north?
So if you can see, yeah, it looks like little driveway connections from driveway. Yeah, that's where the roll-up doors are going to be, which is going to be in the front of the building, north, and on the west side. The side that's against the residential has no roll-up doors.
And it's a single building, 3 stories tall.
Correct.
Okay, that's the extent of questions for now. I'm sure we'll have more after we hear from the staff.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Whenever you're ready, Mary Sue. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Hearing Examiner. For the record, Mary Sue Groth, a senior planner with the Department of Community Development zoning section. I've been previously qualified as an expert witness in land use planning, the Lee County Land Development Code, and the comprehensive plan, and wish to do so again today.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I do have a copy of my PowerPoint for you.
Thank you. That'll be Staff Exhibit 3. And actually going back, do you have a copy? There was a 48-hour letter that was submitted, but we can't accept evidence outside of the hearing. So do you have another copy of your PowerPoint that we could accept? Okay. Could I take that into the record? Thank you. So that would be applicant Exhibit 2, because applicant Exhibit 1 was the 48-hour without that attachment. I'm going to drop, okay. Okay. Is there anything else on this drive?
It's just the PowerPoint presentation, the list of descriptions for the exhibits, and a copy of the staff.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Thank you, I apologize for the interruption.
Problem. So I'll start with the application, the applicant's request and recommendation. Burrell Engineering on behalf of the property owner, Michael Essick, has filed an application to rezone a total of 2.93 acres from commercial C1A to commercial plan development CPD to allow a maximum of 102,222 square feet of mini warehouse and public warehouse uses. The applicant has requested one deviation from the land development code. Staff did recommend withdrawal of that, and I'll cover that a little bit later. It was related to that disposal facility that you were discussing, and again, staff does recommend approval of the request with conditions. Some background on the property. The subject property is an undeveloped parcel located at 2833 New Post Road in North Fort Myers. It consists of one strap number and lies along the county-maintained minor collector New Post Road just south of the state-maintained Bay Shore Road, and is within the central urban future land use categories established by the Lee County Comprehensive Plan, and as I stated, is zoned commercial C1A currently. Surrounding development includes the Foxmoor Plaza to the northeast within the community commercial zoning district, labeled CC on the map, and directly to the north, a C1A zoning district lying along Bayshore Road. To the south of the subject property is the Foxmoor Pines residential neighborhood, zoned RS1, as well as Burt's Bayshore Manor to the west. Project currently has a development order in review for the storage facility and associated infrastructure, and the applicant submitted for a veg permit as well under the VEG 278. A code violation has been issued for the nuisance accumulation on the property, and the veg permit cannot be issued until the rezone and the development order have been approved that may help in mitigating that code violation. Covering Lee Plan criteria under LDC section 34-145, the following slides will demonstrate how the applicant has met the listed criteria for a rezone and plan development. In covering Lee Plan consistency, as previously mentioned, the parcel is located in the central urban future land use category, which by Lee Plan is described as the urban core of the county. Pursuant to policy 1.1.3, the project site is in an area that encourages mixed development use, and the proposed project contributes to the mix of uses that does provide service to the surrounding community. Mini warehouse and public warehouse uses are allowable uses within a commercial plan development, and the mix of commercial and residential uses is consistent with the goals of the central urban future land use category. The proposed development will serve the surrounding community and does remain compatible with other uses in the surrounding area. For objective 2.1 of the Lee Plan, this promotes contiguous and compact growth to contain urban sprawl. The request, if approved, will allow infill development that promotes compact growth patterns. Objective 2.2 and policy 2.2.1 discuss new growth in future urban areas in proximity to available roadway networks and where adequate public facilities exist or are assured. As we covered, the property is located just south of Bayshore Road on the New Post Road minor collector. Access is proposed via a 24-foot wide vehicular driveway onto New Post Road, and a cross-access easement is also proposed to allow future cross-access to that northern property. Existing infrastructure of water and sewer is in place, and utilities are available to the site. Adequate public facilities, including fire, police, EMS, and solid waste, exist to serve the property. For Lee Plan policies 4.1.1 and 4.1.2, the applicant has provided a letter of availability from FGUA stating that wastewater disposal service is generally available to the address and that sufficient capacity exists to provide service based on their estimated flow demands. A letter of availability was also provided from Lee County Utilities stating that potable water lines are in operation adjacent to the property and that sufficient capacity also exists based on those same flow demands, and that fulfills the requirements of these policies. For LEAD Plan Policy 4.1.4 for environmental factors, the applicant has provided the required protected species survey along with the other associated environmental maps in compliance with this policy. So Goal 5 for residential land uses in the surrounding area. The western property line abuts two different zoning districts. The northwest property line abuts a C1A zoned property, and the southwest property line abuts an RS1 zone property. Land Development Code Section 33-1543 for the North Fort Myers Planning Community does not provide buffer requirements for proposed commercial properties abutting existing commercial property. However, LDC Section 10-416D does require a 5-foot wide buffer with 4 trees per 100 linear feet, and the applicant provided master concept plan does note that 5-foot wide buffer. The southwest property line, which abuts the RS1 zoning district, requires a 30-foot wide buffer with 10 trees per 100 linear feet and a double hedge row per LDC Section 10-416D. And the applicant, again, on their master concept plan, has indicated a 50-foot wide buffer, and they will be utilizing that in that dry detention area. The development design places water management dry detention between the Burt's Bay Shore Manor subdivision and the proposed building. And the southeastern property line places a 25-foot wide buffer. The mini warehouse and the public warehouse uses are compatible with the surrounding commercial and residential uses pursuant to policy 5.1.5. For the commercial land use portion, Goal 6 of LEAD Plan seeks to permit orderly and well-planned commercial development at appropriate locations within the county. This property is located just south of Bayshore Road, as we've already established, with other nearby existing commercial and residential zoning districts. The applicant has provided a traffic impact statement for the proposed project that concluded the project as proposed will not create a significant or negative impact to the surrounding roadway. And it does verify all roadways within the project's area of impact currently have a surplus of capacity to accommodate the traffic associated with this use. Lee County Department of Transportation provided a transportation-related analysis stating that the proposed project will not have a detrimental impact on the surrounding roadway system. And the applicant provided master concept plan depicts adequate landscaping and buffering. And again, urban services are available to serve the proposed development. The applicant's environmental report indicated that there are no plant species observed that would be classified as wetland dependent. And in addition, the applicant also provided the required stormwater management plan indicating historic drainage of the property outfalls to the west into the existing county ditch that runs through the western property boundary. And again, that it proposes that dry detention system with a control structure that discharges into the existing county ditch along that western side. For Goal 30 of the North Fort Myers Planning Community, as previously mentioned, that's where the parcel is located, and it is within existing commercial and residential uses and provides compatibility with the surrounding area. It does not locate development in a way that would open new areas to premature or scattered or stripped development, which is consistent with Goal 30 of the North Fort Myers Planning Community. Further, the applicant did hold the required public information meeting for this particular goal in the LEAD Plan. And lastly, for LEAD Plan analysis, not lastly, water quality Goal 125 and Goal 126, the applicant again did provide the required stormwater narrative indicating that the proposed project's stormwater discharge is regulated by a control structure to ensure water treatment prior to discharge, and indicated the development will not degrade surface and groundwater quality. And the applicant's proposed on-site dry detention system conveys that runoff via a system of berms, swales, and an outfall control structure that discharges below the dry detention system, and it maintains the surface water flows and groundwater levels at or above the existing conditions. And lastly, for Lee Plan, Goal 158 of the economic element. Goal 158 of Lee Plan states Lee County will achieve and maintain a diversified and stable economy by providing positive business climate that assures maximum employment opportunities while maintaining high quality of life. This proposed rezone to CPD allows for businesses and employment opportunities to the North Fort Myers area while providing the expansion of a service to the surrounding community. The property resides in the central urban future land use category, which does encourage the greatest range of public service. Further on to the criteria for meeting the code and other applicable county regulations, the applicant has acknowledged that at time of development, land development code and other applicable county regulations will be required. The applicant originally did request one deviation for the request pertaining to reducing the required dumpster enclosure size. Staff did recommend withdrawal of this deviation request because based on land development code already, there is a note in there that provides for that. Covers the calculations for mini warehouse use, and that is a note section below the use table. LDC section 10-261 note 1 states mini warehouse and other associated developments with storage must calculate the minimum enclosure size in relation to the square footage of the office and the caretaker's residence. So they would not need those reductions that they were asking for in a deviation based on it already being covered in the land development code. So again, as we've already established for compatibility with the existing and planned uses in the surrounding area, the parcel is located with an area developed with existing commercial and residential uses. It is compatible with the surrounding area and does not locate development in a way that would open areas to premature or scattered development. For providing access sufficient to support the proposed development intensity, again, property is located just south of Bay Shore Road and New Post Road. Access proposed via a 24-foot wide vehicular driveway onto New Post Road and a cross-access easement on that northern piece of the property for access to the north. A traffic impact statement, again, was proposed for the project. It was submitted and concluded that the request will not create a significant or negative impact to the surrounding roadway network. For environmental adversely affect the environmental critical or sensitive areas, again, the required protected species survey and associated environmental maps were provided that indicated there were no plant species observed that would be classified as water dependent, and no significant hydrophytic vegetation was identified on the site, and no evidence of protected species were observed on the property either. In addition, a stormwater management plan indicating historic drainage of the property outfalls to the west onto the existing county ditch that ran through the western property line or property boundary, and the project proposes dry detention system. County environmental staff did provide a report and visited the site. They made the following findings. For open space, the applicant has proposed 1.414 acres of impervious area, which in accordance with LDC section 10-415A requires 20% open space. The master concept plan provided the project area breakdown, which states the impervious proposed and the open space calculations demonstrate that the site is required to provide 0.587 acres of open space on total acreage of the site being 2.93 acres. Applicant is providing over the required amount of open space, so staff does recommend conditioning to ensure that 1.504 or 51.27% open space is provided. So it reads, prior to issuance of a development order, the development order plans must depict 1.504 acres of open space. There is no indigenous vegetation on the site, so none will be required per LDC section 10-415A. And for buffers, buffers will be provided on the north property line, which abuts a commercially zoned property with a type A buffer that requires a 5-foot wide buffer with 4 trees per 100 linear feet. The applicant has depicted the required buffer on the MCP as such. And the south property line abuts a residential single-family subdivision requiring a 30-foot wide buffer. Applicant is depicting an 8-foot high concrete wall setback and 50 feet from the property line. Within the 50-foot setback, they're proposing a swale and 5 trees and 18 shrubs per 100 linear feet. The east property line abuts New Post Road, which is a county-maintained minor collector right-of-way per LDC section 10-416D. This requires a type D buffer, which consists of 5 trees per 100 linear feet and a double staggered hedgerow. The west property line abuts the C1A zoned property, where a 5-foot buffer will be provided, and the southwest property line abuts an RS1 zone property where a 50-foot wide buffer will be provided utilizing that dry detention system. Based on that, staff does recommend that the following conditions ensure that 50-foot wide buffer and required landscaping are provided. The condition reads, prior to the issuance of development order, the applicant must depict on the landscape plans a 50-foot wide buffer along the southwest property line abutting the residentially zoned property that specifies 10 trees per 100 linear feet and a double staggered hedgerow. All landscape vegetation must be measured from the final grade of the building. For the service for urban services defined by Lee Plan, if located in a future urban category criteria, the property is serviced by LCU and FGUA, the North Fort Myers EMS, the Lee County Sheriff's Office, Lee County Solid Waste, and in addition to public transit, schools, and parks. For the planned development findings and conclusions, staff found the proposed uses are appropriate at this location. They recommended conditions that provide sufficient safeguards to the public interest and relate to the impact and request that it has on the surrounding area. And the applicant did request that one deviation that staff did recommend a withdrawal of. And in conclusion, the requested amendment meets the review criteria established in LDC section 34-145. Therefore, staff does recommend approval of the applicant's request. And that is the end of my presentation, unless you have any questions.
Thank you. No, you're very thorough.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, did the applicant agree to withdraw the deviation request? It was recommended. Okay. We'll just need to update the master concept plan then because it's still shown. So that'll be a housekeeping matter we can take care of after the hearing.
I think they did already provide that, so we can make sure you get it.
Okay. Okay, so then I'm going to call forward the sheets in the order that I have them, as I said. So the first one that I have is for Sandra Romer. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I live down New Post Road, and my concern is that having a 3-story building located right there is going to be pretty awful looking. You'd have to be really quite adept at making it look attractive in order to overcome that 3-story limit. Secondly, I know there is a ditch back on the west side of the property. My concern is that with all of the greenery going away, or most of it going away, is that ditch sufficient to overcome whatever waters may be running off of concrete, which is what a lot of that property is going to become? Is it sufficient to be good for the people living around there, that they're not going to get flooded, they're not going to get, runoffs that are going to have a detrimental impact on their properties. So those are kind of the things that concern us living down in that area. And we'll see.
Thank you. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
The next card I have is for Frederick Glennon. I think I said that. Okay. Okay, Kathleen Fisher. Good afternoon.
Hi, how are you? I think we all pretty much have similar issues and concerns about it. My house is literally right smack behind the middle of that building. I have a pool, which we enjoy. I don't really want to look at a block wall. I know they're talking about putting some shrubs and trees, but 3 stories is not going to, I'm sure they're not going to cover that. So I have 2 questions. One is, my biggest concern, one of the photos that you showed, I couldn't tell if there were windows on those upper levels of that building.
And I should have said.
I can't ask a question.
Please ask them.
Okay.
I'm not going to answer them right now, so ask.
I know there are roll-up doors, but the one photo I saw, I couldn't decide if there were windows up there or not. I would request that there not be windows, because that's going to look right down into my pool. I have a privacy fence out there for a reason, and I'd like to keep it private. The second concern that I mostly have is the storm water and runoff, particular during hurricane season, never mind rainy season. I am assuming that this building will have to be built higher on the ground than our homes on that south boundary are currently built, which is going to cause that runoff to come not only to that ditch, but down that and into our yards. So I'm very concerned about that. The other thing, is there a driveway all around I can't ask a question. I wanted to know if there's a driveway all around the building or if it's only on one side. How long to completion once it's started? And just checking on those buffers, but I think you guys have covered that. So those are my concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming today. Okay, the next card I have is for Frank Fisher.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So she pretty much covered everything that we had spoken about, except I just want to say that my real concern is that runoff, and what is the elevation of the property before the building goes in, because I know what our elevation is, and if it gets much higher than that, I think we're going to have a runoff issue. And the other one, my other concern is, you can put up an 8-foot wall, but behind that 8-foot wall, you have a 30-foot building, which where we're located is right in the middle of that building. I really don't want to look out my back, out of my pool, and see it probably 100 feet away, which is not very far. I'm going to be looking at this big old building. I really don't care to do that. So that is a concern for us, is our way of life is going to change greatly. Another concern, which it hasn't been addressed yet, and I know you can't because you're waiting for approvals and whatever, but the length of time it's going to take to do this project. We've all been around construction. I've been around construction my whole life. It takes a long time to do things like this. You have a lot of noise. You have a lot of dirt. I have a swimming pool. I don't want it filled with dirt. There's no way to combat that other than you're gonna clean your pool every day. Things like that are a concern to us and our way of life that we have right now. So I think that's gonna be not a fun place for us to live after this, during this and after this. So that's really about all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next card I have has two names on it. There's Terry Moody and Susan Denise. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Like the couple that just spoke, my husband, Terry Moody, and I, our home backs up to where this facility is going to be. We're just a few doors apart. So of course we have the same concern in the fact that this building is going to be so tall. I don't understand why it can't be a one-story or a two-story. I mean, I get the fact that they need more storage units for people, but it's definitely a concern. Also, that ditch that's back there has been an ongoing problem. Our family has owned this house since 1983. That ditch is an ongoing problem. We've called water facility places and DOT and you name it, but it's overgrown, it doesn't drain right. We've tried to figure out who owns it. Nobody seems to know that. And we were recently, after Hurricane Ian, we were put in a flood zone. Prior to this, all those years, from the time that house was built in '79 up until Hurricane Ian, we were not in a flood zone. So I don't know if the applicant understands that it's in a flood zone. Also, I'm told that there's some trees back there, cabbage palm trees, that are really not supposed to be tampered with. I think they're part of the Florida environment. One is in our backyard. It's right on the other side of it. Let me look at my notes here just a second so I don't forget anything. I'm sorry.
Not at all.
Okay. One of our neighbors mentioned that when things like this happen, sometimes the applicant pays a fee, not a fee, I take that back, pays compensation for your home value that's obviously going to go down. Because most people that buy a home don't want to, so therefore I'm mentioning that because someone mentioned it to me. Would that be a consideration, immediate compensation for the devaluation of our home? And if any of our grass in our backyard, due to tractors and other heavy equipment, would our yard be fixed if our yard is disrupted? Also, like was mentioned earlier, is dirt. And so our houses could possibly become dirty, windows and all. Would anybody pay to get that taken care of? Construction times, we wouldn't want construction to be any earlier than 7 a.m. or any later than 5 p.m. And you already said that the wall is going to be an attractive wall, or we were told that. And I guess that's about it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Did Mr. Moody wish to speak also? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I definitely have a problem with the ditch runoff. On a normal rainy day, I'm next to the house that's next to the ditch on the property line there. Normal rainy day, that ditch fills up. It runs in behind the neighbor's house and our house. Water runs over that ditch constantly, every time it rains hard. It's not going to be any better when they put all this concrete in there. Now that the vegetation's gone, that soaks up a lot of that rain. So it's just going to be worse. Our street floods from that because the street water won't run out because the ditch won't let it run out. So until the ditch goes down, our street stays flooded. It's going to be another issue because it's going to stay longer and it's going to get more water. And also, like she said, compensation for our property values going down. And I don't want to look out the back and see a 3-story building. 2-story, maybe. And that, when I've understood that one palm behind their house is a cabbage palm. And if nobody noticed that, they must be blind. Because that's supposed to be protected, not torn down. So that's my beef.
The next card I have is for Jezebel Bizania. Okay. Okay. Did you have a card filled out as well? Yes, I did. Okay. Was that Rena Katz? Yes. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. First, I would like to say that the construction process itself would bring many months of loud noise and disruption to our tranquil area. I'm aware you guys said in the presentation that there will be no traffic concerns, but that road is a single lane with a median. So I don't quite understand how the big trucks are going to get through and then the residents will pass through. I believe that this storage facility is out of proportion compared to the other buildings surrounding. I believe it will be an eyesore. I don't believe it complements any of the properties in the area, and it will detract from the aesthetic value and livability of our neighborhood. I agree with the runoff. I live in the neighborhood behind the property, though I do not live on the property line, but we still face issues with flooding and runoff. This land is also home to numerous trees which currently help mitigate the light and noise pollution from the commercial buildings and the main road. So I believe if these trees are removed, the nighttime environment will worsen and wildlife and residents will be affected. I'm aware that the presentation said that the storage units will provide economic growth, but storage units do not provide as much job opportunities as retails do. And there will be not much community engagement. Storage unit is not quite a place for the community to come together. You know, that's just a place where people can go to put their stuff and then leave. There are actually already 9 self-storage units within a 5-mile radius of New Post Road, as well as there's a storage unit located 2 minutes into Suncoast, so I believe we do not need one. However, if there is a need for a storage unit, I believe that a better solution would be to find another plot of land along Bayshore, the main road, so it won't interfere with the residential area. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
That was the last card that I had. Was there anyone else that wished to speak? Okay. Do we need to take a break before we come back for rebuttal, or are the applicant and staff ready to proceed? Okay. If the applicant has.
I'll answer the, yeah. Hi, so I'll just answer the drainage and runoff concerns because that's more on the engineering side and that's something that I did. All the other concerns in regards to the reason why it's being built, I'll let the applicant and the owner of the lot answer that. But, well, first of all, on the height of the building, yeah, it is 3-story, but there's a 35-foot building max height, which we're meeting, and obviously it's up to our client's discretion if he wants to have 3 stories or 2 stories and whatnot.
Current building height under the C1As?
I believe so, yes, 35 feet building max height. So, which is approximately you can do no more than 3 floors, 3
That
stories.
happened today without the zoning?
I believe so, yeah.
Or C1As, correct.
Which is 35 feet. You know, now, obviously it's up to his discretion whether he wants to do 1, 2, or 3 stories. He's doing 3 in this scenario. Now, in regards to the drainage and to the runoff, right? So yeah, we are putting a building and there is going to be a lot of pavement, but we do have a dry retention area that's being put that currently the site doesn't have. So yes, currently there is a lot of vegetation, but all the runoff just goes where it goes, right? Because it's undeveloped, meaning it can go to the road, it can go to the neighbors, it can go to the ditch, which is where we're going to be sending our water to. And what we do as part of the development order, this is a process that takes many months to many years, you know, and approval. One of them is the stormwater management side of things. And we are providing on-site retention. So yes, there's a building and there's pavement, but all that is being run off into the detention area. There is a perimeter berm that's all around the property to prevent water from affecting the adjacent properties. And just so the public's aware, there's no development that ever gets developed in Lee County or pretty much every municipality where you're allowed to discharge or send water to anyone's properties. Everything has to be maintained on site up to a certain level. This was set by the Stormwater Management District that governs this side of Florida, which Lee County abides by. And we've met all the regulations and all the codes. We have berms and our finished floor meets the storm events, which we've calculated. We've retained the water on site, and then that does go to the ditch on the back, the 40-foot, there's a 40-foot easement on the back of the property, which is where this ditch everyone's talking about. It is, for those that don't know, it is owned by FDOT, which is the Florida Department of Transportation. So they're responsible for its ownership and maintenance. Now, if there are issues with that, that's something, you know, you guys could talk directly with them. We can't develop in that area. That's going to be left as it is, and that is what we're discharging to because that's where the property currently is. Instead of us discharging to the right of way and clearly not the neighbors because we're not allowed to do that, the corresponding place would be the ditch, and that's where our runoff is going to collect and go. And that's my response to drainage concerns, runoff concerns, elevations and things like that. Everything is set by the county, by the Water Management District, and the development order is, covers all that ground, and we make sure that our plans meet all that. So that's just my response to that, and then I'll let Michael, our client, respond to all the other concerns.
Further to that point before you go. So when there were detailed calculations in the staff report
Yes.
that don't probably mean a whole lot to people that don't understand stormwater calculations, but
Yeah.
to the basic question of if you're elevating your site to an elevation that's higher, is that considered whenever you're going to get your permits to ensure, as you're doing these calculations, that you're not going to
So
discharge?
pretty much the way that it works is the amount of impervious that you add to a site equates to the amount of detention you have to hold. It's like a direct relationship, meaning you want to add more impervious, more building, more pavement. Well, you need a bigger detention or a deeper detention. It kind of offsets. You can't just put 2 acres of concrete on the ground. That just doesn't work like that. And based on those numbers, we run calculations to determine what we call minimum finished floor. Your floor has to be at a minimum elevation above seawater level. Everything's in North America vertical datum, which is what's used throughout the country. Also the berm, which is what's going to be around the entire site to prevent adjacent properties from getting flooded, is also set by that, and the pavement. So per Lee County and the Water Management District, there are minimum elevations you have to meet. So if things are elevated, it's because it's a requirement. So it is not a choice. And obviously, our client doesn't want their place to flood either. And you want to offset as much as you can. Everyone suffers from flooding, especially with hurricanes and things like that. So people want to mitigate that as much as possible. He's no exception. And I'll restate, the berm is above the existing ground and the proposed area to maintain water. Up to certain elevation. Now, if you have 10 feet of water, well, there's nothing you can do about that, right? But anything within the district's requirements and processes have been met. We're well above that, so we know we'll be able to retain everything within our berm and maintain all the water that we can.
Thank you. Who else from your project team wanted to address the remaining questions?
I mean, I'll address some of their concerns, yeah.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Essig, and this is my beautiful wife, Stephanie Essig. We're your neighbors, okay? We live in Foxmore Lakes. So we understand all your concerns, and your concerns are our concerns, and so we've left it to these experts to let us know that the design that we did would be in compliance with our neighborhood, right? So that's a big concern for us. We saw this project, and I saw it as just happened to see the property by accident. We ended up getting it. The thing about self-storage is, number one, is we started this project 3 years ago, just so you know. Since then, I think, is it Lee County that's kind of put a halt to storage unit facilities being on main roads and stuff like that, or is that just parts of Lee County?
I think I've read about that from Cape Coral. That's not relevant.
Not relevant to us. So, yeah, so, we started this before, and that was, I think, 9 months ago or something like that. So we started this project 3 years ago. So it's a lot of time has passed, and it's taken us 3 years to get to this point for us to even sit here and talk to you. So, your concerns are valid, but we've discussed that with our engineering department, because if you guys are going to flood, we're going to flood. We went through Ian with you. We flooded in Ian. I think what he's, I'm not telling Gabriel what he's saying, but if our property's going to flood, we're all flooding. I mean, it's not a matter of us being the deciding factor of who floods. And another thing about the young lady back there that brought up some very good points. I mean, listen, we live on Foxmore Lakes, and so it's kind of like I look at Winn-Dixie out my back window. It is, yeah, it is. But we still enjoy our pond. We still enjoy our neighbors. We did discuss this with a lot of our neighbors that we associate with. Not one person had a problem with it. And that was part.
I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, and I know you're addressing. I'm sorry, sir. I know that you're addressing them,
Yeah.
but the comment should be addressed to me.
Oh, I did not know this.
That's
Okay.
okay, but it's not, it's supposed to be a dialogue. So certainly, I'm glad that
Yeah.
everyone's in the room, and now the neighbors have met. You guys can continue that conversation.
Okay.
Off record. The point of rebuttal is simply to address the specific, so the question they had about, is the driveway going to go all the way around?
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So, are they allowed to ask me, and then I can?
No, that-
Okay. So the driveway, yes, it will go all the way around the property. I mean, it has to. In order for it to be fluid, if somebody comes in, pulls up, we had to have a way for people to get out on that end of it. The 3 stories, well, the way the property is designed, if you've seen it, it's not a perfect rectangular deal, so we could only fit the building so much into there, and plus that easement is what, a 40-foot setback? So we can't touch 40 foot of property that we have no access to because of that easement back there, that lake, or the ditch that we have. So that's why we had to go up. We couldn't go out in order for us to do that. You know, we are going to put that wall there. We are going to put some nice big trees there to block some of that stuff. So we're looking out for you guys as well, because we're part of the neighborhood as well. Now, and we can always agree to disagree, but that's what we've thought about when we went to build this thing. So those are the challenges that we had, and we came around, and this is not a cheap project. So for it to be like not looking so pretty, that's why we put the windows there. Oh, the windows were one thing. So that's something we can talk to them about. There's those windows, I think, in the back on one of the drawings. I think that Worth and I talked to our architectural engineer, and he said that what we could do with their permission, of course, is to put just windows and the two front corners facing New Post Road, not having any on the back over there to the middle of your property. And I don't even know if those are functional. I don't think you can. I think those windows are put there. People aren't walking in there. It's just it's architectural to not make it look like a pure concrete. We're putting shutters, decorative shutters in there too, to give us some decoration, just not a flat concrete building. So I think our goal is to just have the two corners have the windows on the corners of those. So, you know, hey.
Time of construction was a question too.
Yeah, good, thank you. Well, we talked to one person so far, and they're guesstimating from start to finish would be somewhere around 8 months to a year, which for a 102,000 square foot facility, that's pretty fast. I know you beg to differ, but that's 8 to 12 months for that to happen.
They had hours of operation came up specifically for construction, but is there any hours of operation for the facility once it's operational, or is it 24/7 accessibility?
We haven't really discussed that, but I mean, you know, I'm thinking we're going to have it's going to be access. It's going to be a gate access. So we'll have a security gate all around. You know, we'll have a fence all the way around with the wall over here and the fence all the way around. People have to have a code to get in. So it's going to be enclosed. So we'll have that. We're going to have security cameras all around the facility for protection for the community. As you all know, I've tried to work with these homeless people, but they're not working with us because they were causing a lot of problems. I mean, we feed the homeless, so we want to have security. So that's another thing I guess we can look at and see as far as where do we have the cameras pointed. You know, so it's not pointing in your backyard or whatever the case may be. So those are things that we can work with on that end of it for sure. Is there another question?
The last one was the protected trees, and so there was a concern that trees would not be protected during the.
Well, yeah, you got it?
Yeah.
Yeah, come on. Did I answer all your questions?
Yeah.
I did? Okay.
Sorry. So to answer the cabbage palms, pretty sure I don't believe that they are protected. Now there are things called heritage trees, and that's based on the diameter breast height, which is pretty much the diameter of the tree that determines whether it's a heritage tree or not. And per Lee County requirements, every one you rip up, you have to plant one that's either one or two that are of equal diameter when they mature as well. So there were a couple of heritage trees on site. They're all near where the building's located, so we couldn't save them even if we wanted to. So we are replacing them, and that is shown on our landscape plan, which has been obviously approved by the county. So in regards to native vegetation on the environmental survey, there are no native species or vegetation that needs to be protected or maintained besides the heritage trees, which are going to be replaced. And they will be placed specifically along the buffers, right? We do have, yes, we're getting rid of vegetation, but per Lee County requirements, we have buffers all around the site, and each buffer requires trees and shrubs every so many linear feet, which we are obviously meeting. So in regards to to the trees, whatever can be kept has been kept. There are a couple of trees near the property line that we are going to maintain, but pretty much everything else is going to be proposed. We're going to be replacing trees all around the buffer area of the site and replacing the heritage trees with an equivalent, tree or trees, to offset that change. Thanks.
Thank you. Did staff have any rebuttal to provide? Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to address a little bit of the indigenous, but I think you covered that okay. If there are cabbage palms, they were not depicted on the protected species survey. Environmental staff within Lee County also visited this site, which is, making sure that whatever's on that protected species survey is actual and factual. As he stated, there are heritage trees that would be on the site, and those, if they are not depicted on a protected species survey, environmental staff notes it, and then we condition it. So that's usually how that works. So if there are any type of indigenous, there were no indigenous that were reported on that. And then I think one of the other questions was kind of in regard to construction and dust, and will we get paid if for dust and things like that. And I think that one of the things is this is a commercially zoned property. So whether it's a storage unit or a retail facility or whatever commercial business is going in there, you're going to have construction that's happening. If it was a residential portion, there would still be construction going on. So it's already a commercially zoned property. The rezone is now just a planned development that gives us more parameters and more things to put in place so that you guys are protected. That's kind of where that comes in. So any type of development that's going to happen on this property, you're going to have to clear the vegetation off, and you're going to have to build the construction, and you're going to have to deal with the noise and the things like that. So the only answer to that would not be develop it at all, correct? But we're in a position where it is a commercially zoned property. So that's really the only thing I had to say about that.
Thank you. Okay, so then the last items that are just a little bit of housekeeping. I need to leave the record open so that you can amend the MCP to remove the dumpster deviation. I would also encourage you to take some time and look at if you can move the dumpster itself, because I do think that that's a fair question. If it will fit, just take a look at it. Hopefully it will. And then I'd like to give staff and applicant time to look at hours of operation. That's a typical condition that we put on storage facility uses like this when they're near to residential uses. So there's plenty of cases you can look at to see what those typically look like. I would typically give you till the end of next Friday, but that is a holiday. That is July 4th. So I will leave the record open till the end of business July 11th. You may not need that line. If you don't, submit it earlier, and as soon as I have it, I can begin working on it. And then, as you know, the next step is to go to the board, and they'll have the final hearing. So thank you, everyone, for coming. Again, if you spoke today, you will get copies of the recommendation and a notice of when the board hearing will be, and you're welcome to speak at the board then as well. Thank you. Please stay well.
Thank you.
Thank you.